Welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm, having a successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax business. I'm Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center, and I've been working with accounting professionals for more than 20 years, helping them find the employment that they've always wanted, but more importantly, also start and build successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax businesses. One of the things that I pride myself on is really getting to know the individuals that I'm working with and helping them build the thing that at first seems a little bit more daunting and difficult, and making it simple and turnkey. As accounting professionals, one of the things that we often do is really struggle to get paid what we're worth. So I find pride in actually helping accounting professionals with confidence and competency, actually offering quality accounting services. We are actually sponsored by Universal Accounting Center. This is an accounting school, post-secondary school for accounting professionals to get the training, resources, coaching, and support that they need to obviously offer with confidence those accounting services that they need to, whether it be training for your staff or yourself to offer quality bookkeeping, tax, QuickBooks, coaching and advisory services. Check out what Universal Accounting Center has to offer for you as you work on your business to provide the quality accounting services in your area. Now, today we have a special guest. This is someone that I'm excited to have with us. It's Charlie Price. He happens to be a CPA and business consultant that works with accounting professionals to implement high impact, high profit offers and create a simple marketing, pre-sales, and sales system for them to follow. Prior to becoming a consultant, Charlie spent over 15 years in the accounting industry, including 10 in public speaking. He is the owner of the Marketing Success for Accountants and Bookkeepers Facebook community with over 1,800 members currently. So welcome to the show, Charlie.
Hey, Roger, how you doing? Thanks for having me on, man.
I am really good. This is going to be fun. So I want to just start with a little bit of background and begin with you sharing what even drew you to become an accountant. Why the accounting profession?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say I was always really good with numbers, analytical, going through school, middle school, high school, and I took a class in high school, like that intro, the fundamental accountant. I really enjoyed that. And honestly, my dad had a blue collar job and was like, you need to go the white collar, you need to go the white collar route, find yourself an office job. And I took that advice, and I really didn't look back since then. So, yep, that's how I got into accounting.
So for some people, when they get into accounting, they go the audit route and they find that it's not what they hoped and thought it would be. A lot of long hours, perhaps some travel. What did you find as you first started into the accounting profession? Was it what you thought it might be? Was it different than you expected?
So I started, I went right into tax, and I pretty much spent my entire time in public accounting. That entire time, pretty much in tax. I did some audit, but in terms of what I thought was different, I didn't realize how much software was going to be involved, and like how much was kind of already done for you when you jumped in, if that makes sense. It wasn't like you needed to know it's not like you're drawing up T accounts on the job, if that makes sense. So that was kind of surprising when I started.
That's actually a very important part. In learning accounting, it's almost like learning programming. You've got to get into the nuts and bolts of the language, and you've got to understand the nuances of it all. But really, when you get out of learning accounting, the actual software really simplifies a lot of what we're doing. The evolution that we went through back when we went from journals and ledgers, actual binding bound paper, and we didn't have to actually calculate everything, to software with computers being available, really revolutionized what we were doing. It simplified. Rather than having to take a day or a week to produce the financial reports for a previous month, you just put in the software the begin date, end date, and it just calculated the numbers, and voila, there's a report. And it was probably produced faster than you were putting in the parameters of how long you wanted the timeline.
Yeah.
So that's quite fascinating. So with that being said, yeah, I would agree. It's a lot simpler, but you have to know the nuances behind the scenes to have that sixth sense as to whether or not the numbers are coming out correctly.
100%. And I remember that green ledger paper being around too. And I've seen some of that lurking in the office. So yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I'm old enough. I don't have a visor and I don't have an armband, so I'm good. And I don't have an abacus either, so I'm good. So what I'd like to figure out then is you got into accounting and so forth, but obviously that's not where you are today. Tell me, going back, what was the transition from doing accountant and or being a CPA and doing accounting to now starting a business that consults accountants?
That's a great question. So, um, I was in the public accounting field for 10 years, and towards that tail end, I had some opportunities to do things like building strategic relationships and strategic partnerships and referral relationships and some of the more marketing and sales stuff, which I really loved and I had a strong passion for. And I also just knew from talking to other accounting businesses out there, other accountants out there, I knew that there was a huge void in the market and a huge need for that skill set. I mean, I knew that accountants needed a lot of help on the marketing and sales side of things. So that really drove me to jump out and start consulting.
Okay, so tell us about that jump. Was it something that you consciously did? What forced that? What was that like starting your own business? What was the what were maybe some of the stumbling blocks that you experienced at the beginning?
Oh yeah, so it's definitely challenging. I uh, jumped out. Basically, I hired a mentor, which is probably the best thing that I did. Hiring somebody that can actually guide you through, um, the process and how to actually build a business. And for this was a consult, building a consulting business. Um, that was incredibly, incredibly helpful. There were ups and downs and highs and lows throughout that journey. That was back in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of stress, a lot of sleepless nights, but ultimately it's just that having that perseverance as you're going through and realizing that you're progressing, getting 1% better every day, and then starting to see the client results come in once you get that first client, then that second client, and so on and so on.
Yeah, one of the
So
things that I've found as I've spoken to so many people who have started their businesses is there's various reasons why they began. For some people, it's that they never intended to be an entrepreneur. They don't see themselves as an entrepreneur. It's very fearful to have their own business, but
mhm.
yet circumstances, life happens, whether it be a loss of employment, it maybe an opportunity presents itself, whatever the case, there's that first step of going and getting that business license and registering and saying, today's the day. I'm going to no longer do this as a supplemental income. I'm going to do this as a primary income. There's a lot of things going on there. And I liked how you said sleepless nights, because there are some of those. And the individual clients that you get one after another, every one of them is a huge win. It's a big success, something to celebrate. And I believe everybody listening can identify with that. So as you started your business, it was obviously to help accounting professionals more market and sell their services. What was one of the things that you wanted to differentiate in your business to help accounting professionals be their best?
Well, I would say more recently something that I've identified is the implementation of high impact offers. So include bringing in a highly profitable offer that you can charge 1K to 5K a month for, so that you need fewer yeses, fewer sales appointments, um, and ultimately get bigger results that way. I found that that's been a game changer.
Well, I think what you're talking about there is so important, because you're right. When you're bringing in a client that's paying between 1 to 5,000 a month for your services, it's definitely high impact and it's definitely a high profit margin offer. So, what would you say to describe what that kind of an offering would look like? What is the accountant doing that's so unique but yet so valuable?
Yeah, so that is going to depending on the target market. But the biggest thing is we're solving a pain point. We're solving a massive pain point for that client. So that can take shape in various ways, whether that's something like a tax planning service or something like that, where you're saving them a bunch on taxes, something on advisory, or where you're maximizing their profitability on a month to month basis, so they're continuing to grow and scale their business, and really providing that high level of service, and not just working retroactively with them, like some accountants out there are just punching in the numbers, cranking out tax returns, but actually proactively working with them and solving some big problems for those businesses.
So, as you're working with an accountant and you're helping them decide what that offering may look like, what has your experience said about the accountant who's struggling to take that step and actually offer that service and provide that type of service to their client? What have you found is the biggest hangup for them to take the step and actually put the offer out there and start talking to business owners about that service?
What comes to mind first, I twofold. One is self-confidence and the confidence to offer that service at that price point. So that's something that you're going to be nervous the first time you offer a service like that if you haven't, just like the first time that you got a tax return client or the first time that you signed your first or second client. You get excited because you signed the client, but then you have to be like, oh, okay, now I have to do the work and provide results, right? It's the same thing. Secondly, it's identifying the pain points
Mm-hmm.
that and the desires, and really getting clear on the service offering to a really detailed level so that you can really convey the value of what you're bringing to the table.
I like how you describe that because you use the word confidence. I think there's so much to be said being able to look a business owner in the eye and say, I can X. And your ability to, with confidence, declare what it is that you do that they're going to be paying for is huge. The second thing is you've got to be very specific as to what is their benefit, what's their win, what is the return on that investment they're going to be making with you. And you have to be able to articulate what is it that they're working towards that's going to be huge for them and why they would want to pay you for that service. So that brings me to the third thing, which is, I believe, your point, the competence to do it. You've got to now have the ability to deliver. And as an accountant, if you've got those three things in place, the confidence to be able to say, you know what, I'm ready, I can do this, I can make this difference, I can define what the benefit is, this is what we're going to be providing and offering, and here's the means that we're going to achieve it, we're going to follow this specific process. That competence is huge. And so when we talk to our students about it, one of the things that we really try to stress is having a clear system that you can implement with your clients, that as you follow a clear program, your client will experience that evolution that you've sold them on. And in the end, they will have benefited as you expected because you followed a turnkey process. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think what you're describing there is so important. So now I'm going to kind of reverse this on us. We're going to say that that's the end. We're beginning with the end in mind. We're clear as to what it is we provide or offer as a service. Let's go now to the beginning and talk about marketing and selling this, because I know you speak of creating simple marketing strategies. First of all, what is marketing in your mind? And then what do you mean by simplifying it?
Mm-hmm. So marketing to me, and the process that I walk through with my clients, it really comes down to three key areas, and that's building awareness, and that's how many people in your target market, how many decision makers in your target market know who you are and know what you provide, what service you provide. That next piece, and also also, if you don't have awareness, they can't buy from you. So we need to build that first and foremost.
Uh-huh.
Um, the second piece would be
So when you
authority.
say simple,
Uh-huh. Mhm. Go
okay,
ahead.
authority.
Oh,
No,
okay. Well,
I was
and
just going to expand on what you're saying, but keep with the three. Keep
no,
going
no.
with the three.
Let's break it down, because I was actually going to give you, like, with awareness, I kind of think of it like building a platform, right? Like, um,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this, story of maybe you've heard this story of, like, The Apprentice with Arsenio Hall, and he was calling up all of his all of his celebrities. He was trying to get some money, and nobody was answering Arsenio's calls because this was after his show had been canceled. And Arsenio said something on the show along the lines of, "Man, when I had the show, everybody answered my calls." So
Uh-huh.
having a platform is really important there. So awareness is extremely important. That's all. That's what I was going to elaborate on there.
Okay. So number two.
Yep. Number two is authority. So
Yeah.
this is a common one that I think people miss. If you're just shooting out cold emails or you're shooting out cold messages all the time, this is a big one. Um, Really building up that know, like, trust factor and establishing yourself as an expert um, in front of those people that you've built awareness with. So that could be, things like um, publishing content, putting out trainings, speaking engagements. So things like that
Hmm.
would be building authority. And then finally would be either starting conversations with those people that you've warmed up, or using one-to-many approaches to drive sales opportunities and sales calls and ultimately sales.
I love it. Those three things I think are so appropriate for the accounting professional to realize, because when you talk about awareness, the first stage of marketing is just lead generation. It's finding the contacts that are your potential customers. And when you define marketing as simply just being where are you going to find and get those introductions is huge, because once you've now had the introduction, then the next things that you're describing then fall into place. The authority, the awareness leads to why are you the expert? Why are they interested or intrigued in what it is you do? And you have to educate them. You've got to help them see what it is that you do that's unique or different, and more importantly, why you are different than everyone else. And I liked how you described it with know, like, trust. Everyone's going to hear that when they're getting a sales training. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. But what you're talking about there is where people will get into the niching discussion and how they need to be differentiating. But you then have an interesting thing here where after you've brought up the 3 points, the next part of this is the pre-sale experience. What do you mean by pre-sale?
Well, we want when we get on a sales call with these people, or strategy session, or whatever you want to call it, whatever the term is you guys want to use. We want them to be warmed up, as warmed up as possible.
Yeah.
So we want to be implementing things like automated emails. Um, we want to be getting things like case studies, or getting them warmed up to our methodology and what we're doing, whether that's some kind of video sales letter or something
Okay.
like that. I don't want to get too into the weeds there, but having something that really gets them already warmed up with what you're going to be potentially presenting on the call.
Yeah, and it's hard to say what's going to resonate with them as a potential customer. We don't know what they're looking for necessarily. We don't know what their status is at the time. That's why the pre-sales process is a lot of things to help that person move towards sitting down and meeting with us and discussing what we can specifically do for them. So that brings us to the next stage, which is obviously getting the sale, having a sales system. When you say sales system, what does that mean?
So that would be having a solidified framework. So I'm not a big believer in sales scripts word for word. We want to be human on
Gotcha.
these conversations and not robotic. So not a big fan of using scripts at all. But you do want to have a structured framework to go from high to buy, buy. So
Yeah, yeah,
you know and you want that to be
yeah.
the same, ideally every time follow that same process, and that way you can continue to optimize the sales process, see where things are going well, see where things are going could be improved, and that's another piece of it, optimizing.
Yeah. So from a sales system standpoint, I agree with you. It's not so much a script in the sense that you're verbatim saying to every potential customer the same thing, but I'm old enough that I remember back in the day having a 3-ring binder that was laminated sheets or slips that I could put sheets into, where presenting accounting services was literally a a chart, a flow chart of different slides that we could use to illustrate what we were talking about. Well, what that did for me is it gave me continuity. I always had this slide or this image that I would show, and it would lead to this next point and this next talking point, and we would go through and begin with an explanation of who we are and then the services we provide. I mean, that was something that was predating the PowerPoint presentation that we would later do. I mean, the evolution of the sales process has definitely changed to the point now you might be presenting your services via a remote call, like a Zoom conversation. And you've got to have a system that when you meet with a client, I agree with you, that you can follow and have it be turnkey, something predictable.
100%.
Now, here's an interesting question. As you've worked professionally with these accounting professionals to help them apply these principles in their business to really take their company to another level, what are some of the the characteristics of the accountant you've worked with that has shown itself to be, okay, this person is going to do well implementing these strategies? What are some of the characteristics that accounting professional brings to the table as she is preparing to go down this journey of implementing these services or the system the way you're describing it?
Two words come to mind. I would say consistent, somebody that shows up every day. And even if it's for 30 minutes or, it could be as little as 30 minutes, just putting in some work on those CEO level activities that's going towards growing the business and the ultimate vision for the business. Making sure that you're consistent on that. And then also perseverance, because, like we talked about earlier, Roger, we all know that there's going to be challenges and roadblocks and obstacles on the way, and we just need to be prepared for that. And the people that know that that's coming and try not to keep the highs too high or the lows too low, so to say, are the ones that can get over those challenges, obstacles, and keep on moving.
So those two things I think are similar to what I would say. The things that I have found that are differentiations from those that struggle to move forward is first passion. I love working with somebody that's just passionate about accounting, that loves working with business owners, that feels that if they can work with a client, they can make a difference and help them be more profitable. I mean, that accounting professional, when she's able to say, I help and make a difference, she's eager to figure out how to do it easier and more, and implementing these strategies like you're describing to market more effectively and sell more, and then more importantly, offer a higher impact and profitable offer is something that's very palpable for them, and therefore they can get even that much more excited about it. But the second thing that I think is important is quality. They're interested in offering a quality service, and they're interested in following a system. They're not trying to challenge and reinvent and tweak. They're trusting of the system, and they're willing to implement it as it was designed, believing that it will actually pay off in the end. And those two characteristics, like yours, are the ones that I think really set a person up for success. So with that being said, conversely, when you're starting to work with an accounting professional, what are some of the characteristics that they might have that are signs that this isn't going to work or they're not ready for this?
I think one big one that's coming that comes up that I think is going to continue to come up is someone that's maybe offering those traditional tax and accounting services, but isn't necessarily open to offering those higher impact offers or the higher value offers, and the word set in their way kind of comes to mind, and not so much flexible and malleable on that end. I mean, I think we need to be extremely malleable and flexible in the accounting world that we're in today.
Yeah, they want to make more money and they want to do it differently, but they're unwilling to change. I don't understand that. They feel as if they feel as if what they're doing is going to make them more money, but yet they're not making more money. So I agree with you. The reluctance to change is really where it gets hung up. The way I see it is when working with a person that is indecisive, an accounting professional that is unable to make a decision and then stick with it. And what I mean by that is life brings us all challenges. There's a lot going on in our lives, especially when running a business. So what we do is we've got to make sure that when we make a decision, we basically work towards that now. And so you can't be indecisive and you cannot be not committed. You got to be committed. So when I hear what you're describing, I see people moving from traditional accounting services into more consultative advisory type roles. Is that a way to describe what you say when saying high impact, high profit offers?
100%. Yeah, I think it's becoming more, showing up as more of a consultant, more of a advisor for that business owner.
So what's one of the things that you have found that accounting professionals need to change their mindset with, let's say, when they're becoming that advisor, that coach, that consultant. At first, some of them I work with struggle with the ability to say that they're an expert in something or that they're able to coach. How do you get the person to say, you know what, I have the ability to be a good consultant, coach, advisor?
Mm-hmm. That's great. I think it all starts with it's that confidence like we talked about earlier. And that's going to come ultimately with serving clients when they come on. So you're not going to have 1,000% confidence when you start with your first client. And I think all of us can resonate with that with our first tax or bookkeeping client potentially. But um, there are things that we can do to raise confidence. Things like as getting out there and putting on trainings and putting out your thoughts onto social media and getting that positive feedback from people. Um, another good tactic I would recommend or strategy I would recommend is getting out there and actually going out and having strategy sessions with your target market. And I mean legitimate, 1 hour, giving them everything you got in value, um, and getting feedback based on that and helping them serving them. And you could potentially, even ask for a testimonial off of a conversation like that, if that would be helpful on the social proof side of things.
Yeah. Now, I've got another question regarding marketing. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of things that you can be doing. What should an accountant be doing? What's an effective way to market and get out there and meet these potential business owners?
That's such a good question, Roger. I know a lot of accountants are focusing on things like business cards and building the website potentially and things like that. I I tend to look at this from the marketing from an approach of let's look at what's your personality type, what platform fits best for you, where does your target market spend the most time, not where they have accounts, not like where they have accounts, but which platform are they using where they spend the most time,
Mm-hmm.
and you're more likely to get in front and start conversations with those people. So whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, it doesn't matter. It's just like where can we easily get in front of the most amount of those people, and that could be in person as well. It just depends on your target market.
So when you're working with an accounting professional, I think it's common to ask, what's your 30-second commercial? And have in whatever discussion just that brief introduction of who you are. What are some suggestions you have for an accounting professional to, in so short a time, say what it is they do, but not in a dry, boring way? What is it that you tell them to point out or emphasize?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to um, you want to focus, not get too. I know that you can have different services here, but really it would come down to having a promise and then some pillars. So I help accountants, or I help your target market go from this to that. I help them improve profitability, um, using these three techniques, or using this technique, and actually walking them through those those pillars, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think what you're emphasizing there is important because too often what I think we have a tendency to do is say what we do, and that's the features, the technical aspects, and they don't care that we do bank reconciliations, that we balance
Hmm.
this, that we close books, that we reconcile. I mean, they don't care about the tasks. What they're looking
Yep.
for is the deliverable. And so what we're able to do is, like you said, use the word profit. I think what we need to say is what they're wanting to hear, what they need to hear as business owners. So one of the things that might illustrate what you're sharing there is talking about cash flow. Cash flow is obviously a very common concern within many small businesses, knowing where the money's coming from, where is it going. But even still, I don't think that's saying enough. What we need to emphasize is that we help them make it so that they have money in the bank. If you're able to tell a business owner that what you're doing is help them have money in the bank, obviously that's okay. You hit a nerve. Yeah, I'd like to have money in the bank every morning when I check my account. I want to know there's money there. The second thing that I think is, if you're offering tax related services, tax planning and preparation is kind of a no brainer. I would expect that you can help me file my tax return. But more importantly, I want to know that you're going to limit my tax liability. You're going to help me pay the least in taxes I ought to be paying. And so there's okay, now you got my attention. And then the third is, like you said, profit. I think they want to know that you can actually help them become more profitable. And I add to that they're getting paid what they're worth. And I say that because I think so many entrepreneurs have in their history some time when they deferred taking a payment, a paycheck, and didn't get a dividend because they were paying a vendor or an employee. They had to make payroll. And so to be told that my job is to make sure you're not doing that, that you're getting paid, that there's profit, that's really quite, I think, appealing. So to say that as an accounting professional, I help my clients with cash flow management to make sure you have got money in the bank, tax planning and preparation to ensure that you're paying the least in your tax liabilities. And most importantly, I focus on working with my clients to help them with profit to ensure that they're getting paid what they're worth. Heaven's sakes, you just hit three things right there that business owner is going, well, that sounds a little bit different than any of the accountants I know and work with. So tell me, how do you do that? And now we can get into a conversation. So I like how you positioned that. Very distinct pillars, profit being the end point that you're talking about. So well said. Let's talk about then working on the business. As an accounting professional, you've got a lot on your mind. We refer to it as being an accountrepreneur, and you've got all this time that you're spending in your business with all the hats that you're running around with. How do you actually work on the CEO tasks rather than the in the business tasks? How do you distinguish that for your clients? How do you help them balance that?
Great question. And something that we're even something I have some more things coming out, content related to this stuff. So I'm excited that you brought that up. Consistency, like I spoke on earlier, it's so important to make sure that you're consistent on taking action towards your visions. And that's extremely difficult. It could be extremely difficult in this industry that we're in with the seasonality and how we can, the client communication can bog us down. Work and service delivery can get bogged down, and we can get into the weeds really easily. Some things that I would recommend doing for CEO level tasks, I would set non-negotiables each day on what does my morning routine look like, first of all, because that's going to help your positive momentum and growth. Are you going to be doing journaling each day, and reviewing your goals of the business on a daily or weekly basis? And then where can we block off time on the calendar? Because that's the only way it's going to get done. Because I know a lot of people are going to get an email or a client call out of nowhere if we don't block this out. To focus on those power activities that are going to ultimately drive revenue and more importantly drive us towards that vision of what the business owner wants to get their business to. Right, that's the purpose of what we're doing this for. So.
Well, there's definitely a big distinction between working on and working in the business. When you say working on, sometimes business owners feel like they're working on their business. As an accounting professional, I assume I'm working on it. What are some of the things that you feel a business owner, an accountrepreneur, needs to be doing on their business? What does that really mean?
I would define on the business task as strategy, setting vision, marketing, sales, and delegation and systems.
Yeah.
There's 5 to 6 things. If you go look at, I know that there's work to be done. If you go look at the maybe some of these regional firms or the biggest firms that are out there, the CEO isn't really doing a lot of that work. And we want to keep, if the goal is to continue to grow, we need to set aside time to continue to grow on a daily basis.
So when I was listening to you, one of the things that I was reminded of is, as the owner of the firm, first and foremost, you're the one that has the vision. Where's this going? What's it going to become? And as you have that vision, the more clear it is. What are the services we're providing? What's the difference we're making with our clients? How do we make money? As you have that vision, once you know where you're going to be in 1 year or 3 years, it allows you to more easily make the decisions on the day-to-day basis, because they either move you towards that vision or they distract and take you away from it. So I like how you're describing those different elements that are making that up. When you say working in the business, what are some of the things that the owner of the accounting firm ought to be doing in the business? What shouldn't they be neglecting?
Well, I mean, the service needs to be delivered. You have to get your clients great results. So you want to be, you know, handling that to the extent that, you could do fulfillment. Before we get to the point where we can delegate more of those services and get more off your plate. So definitely the client fulfillment side of things, as well as client communication. But I would, you know, I would work on making sure that you're not answering questions and emails on a whim all day and phone calls on a whim all day, and not being reactive in your business you know, from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think two things there that I thought were important is one, it's when you're doing all of this, what are you doing to fulfill the needs of your client? And that's the deliverable, and you've got to consciously be figuring out what are you doing to be paid what you're worth. And then the second thing that I think you pointed out was time management. It's blocking out specific times so that you are actually not being throughout the day purely reactive to what's going on around you. I think that's a good sign of a good business person, is they're able to make the priorities a priority. It's not these are the things that need to get done and I'm going to get done after everybody's done squawking at me. It's I'm going to get these things done. So I like how you've been describing that. So here's something that I think is important, is looking at the business. When you talk about accounting, what do you think is going to change in the coming few years? What do you think is going on in the profession that an accounting professional needs to be aware of as we're evolving right now?
Well, that's a great question. I think those traditional services, those tax preparation services, those bookkeeping and accounting services are becoming uh, more and more commoditized by the day, and that's I think that's going to continue to go on and continue to happen. And maybe some people that are listening um, are feeling more price pressure, or that maybe they feel like their prices are going down in those services because of people are offering those services at cheaper rates because of the lack of barrier of entry, really, and how many people are supplying those services. um and um I would say there's also business owners aren't valuing those services maybe as much as they used to. So um I think that's the biggest thing that comes to mind, Roger, is that, and along with automation on some of these things as well. So I know that's a common thread that comes up, but I'm a big believer that um, the way of the future for the industry is going to be through advisory and consultative services.
I would agree. How do you think AI is going to impact the profession? Artificial intelligence.
I'm not I wouldn't say that I'm a huge expert on AI, but I could see some things like your routine 1040s and things like that becoming more and more automated, um, and some of those returns getting basically, um, those would go away. And I think bookkeeping as well. I think that there's going to be more software coming out and more AI that comes out that helps to fulfill those services. But when it comes to advising on human decisions, I don't think that's something that um, AI is quite ready to do yet.
Yeah, when we look at these high impact, high offer things where we become more and more valuable and relevant, is that advisory role. It's now that the information exists, now that we have it available to us, let's interpret it. As an accounting professional, I think our definition or our description of being a translator is so important, because we're taking the language of business accounting and we're helping the business owner see what's important in this mountain of information. And as accounting professionals, we're able to, through ratios and trend analysis, we're able to really start articulating a story and show correlations that the business owner, now knowing, can make more informed business decisions. And so we have a definite place. And when we're, as an accounting professional, asking questions of why did we buy this, why did we sell this, why did we do this, that's a question that the business owner is now having to answer, where there's perhaps no one else in the organization or anyone else that they're associated with that's bothering to ask that question. And so our role asking that becomes more and more important. And so I love how you're describing that really where we're providing the biggest value and where we can charge the most is in fact in that service. So I like how you're describing it. Let me break off here real quickly for a sponsor mention. We want to mention our sponsors for this today, the episode today, and it's Universal Accounting Center offering a book called In the Black. It's 9 Principles to Make Your Business More Profitable. It's a book that's designed to help you specifically work on your business and, in fact, be that accountrepreneur that you need to be. It's allowing you to actually focus on both your short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, so that as a company, you can be working on what matters most today and also have the vision that you need to have for the future. If you haven't already read and used the book In the Black, I encourage you to go to the description here of the podcast and get a copy of the book In the Black, so that you can literally apply these principles in your own business. The nice part about this is once you've learned and applied these principles in your own company, you can then take these same principles to those of your clients and help them actually apply them, you being the advisor this time, as to what it is they need to be doing to apply these 9 principles to make their business profitable as well. So for this, go to the description in the podcast and get a free copy of the book In the Black right now and today. The other thing I would encourage you to do is listen to our other episodes, as well as subscribe to our podcast. If you haven't already, this podcast is actually designed to give you the tips and tricks that you need to build the premier accounting firm in your area. So, got some interesting questions for you here, Charlie. With regards to your own business, now that you're up and running, do you have a mantra or a thing that you use to kind of run your own company?
Yeah, that's a good one. My purpose and the mission of the business is really to empower accountants to ultimately transform the lives of themselves and their clients. So I know that I'm opening up their eyes to the ability that they have to really make a huge impact on their clients and ultimately their business and their families and lives as well.
Very good. Regarding your business, earlier on, you spoke of the sleepless nights. As difficult as it was getting started back in 2018, what advice would you give to yourself if you could talk to yourself just a few years ago and seeing those challenges that you would face? What would you say to your younger self? What advice would you give?
That's a good question. I know I don't regret any of that, because I know that that's what ultimately led the way here. I think it would just be hammering back in that point that the challenges and obstacles are ultimately going to be what gets you moving forward and what gets you the growth in your business. So being able to overcome those challenges is just part of the journey.
Yeah, the challenges, they're going to come. I mean, that's just life, but I liked your perspective on it. It's through those that you're going to build the business, and it's through those that you're going to be defined. I like that. That's the challenges we can't control, but we can definitely control how we react and what we do from them. So I like that.
One thing I wanted to put in there, Roger,
Uh-huh.
I've noticed that when I first started business, the waves of the ups and downs were much higher. Like the highs were much higher and the lows were much lower. And I
Yes.
think that I think that they've gone down as just I guess as I've progressed as a business owner. So I think something along those lines would be something I would tell myself too.
I think that's important for the listeners to hear, because whether they're in a position of starting their business or have something established that's functioning, I'm sure they're going to relate to that ebb and flow. The highs are higher and the lows are lower. The earlier in the process you are. And as you also push yourself and try new things, those waves get to be bigger again. So that perspective, that understanding, knowing that going into the process is, I think, helpful. Here's another question for you. What does freedom mean to you?
I think I would say freedom is the ability to do what you want, when you want, for what and who you want.
Good. Yeah, I think a lot of business owners get into their own businesses for various reasons. And, you can speak to every business owner and find that there's a lot of motivations as to why they started their business. But there's something to be said about freedom. What you're doing, you get all the consequences, whether good or bad, and you're controlling in many regards your own destiny. So freedom, a lot to be, that's a mouthful, right? It's a big word.
Yeah, it's a big word.
It is. All right. So let me do this. I'm going to recap some of the things that we discussed, and then I'd like to ask for a final thought on your part, Charlie, as to what advice you'd have for accounting professionals. As a quick recap, I think one of the things that we've really hit on is, as accounting professionals, our role is evolving. And as Charlie mentioned, we need to be looking at what high product or high impact, high price, profitable marketed services we can be offering to our clients that really can impact their businesses and, more importantly, help them where they need the help the most, but allow us to get paid the most for our services. It's just more and more conversation about offering quality consultative and advisory services. The other thing that I think that Charlie was good at pointing out is there is a process in the marketing. He shared 3 steps here of awareness, authority, and conversational. And I think those are good words to keep in mind when we're considering our marketing and sales strategies. Anything and everything we can do to grow the business is important, because if you may have heard before, I will always stress that nothing happens until you make a sale. It is actually the way we make money. So regardless of how good or great you are as an accounting, bookkeeping, tax professional, unless you have paying clients, it doesn't matter. So that's very helpful. And then I believe what Charlie was also sharing about becoming a little bit more conscious of what you're doing to work in your business and work on your business is helpful, because we need to definitely set aside time that we're prioritizing to work on our company and apply what we feel is the vision for our business. So with that all in mind, let me just invite you to register for, subscribe to our podcast and listen to our other episodes. I want to invite you to also take advantage of this opportunity to reach out to Universal Accounting School and find out what we can do to help you in applying these principles in your business to have the premier accounting firm in your area. For more information about Universal, go to universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. So Charlie, what final thoughts might you have for the audience?
I would say, I think, make sure that you've set your vision and be really intentional about setting your vision for where you want this business to go, where you want your accounting to business to go over the next quarter, over the next year, and then over the next 5 years. And make sure that you start to implement daily habits each and every day that are going to move you closer and not further away from that vision, and constantly be reviewing that. And I have actually, Roger, if you don't mind, I actually have a daily action guide that may be a good template that I'd be happy to provide too. If anybody would be interested in that, I can distribute over.
Please, yes, send over the daily action guide and we'll put it in the description for the people to get access to it. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Perfect. Well, with that, I do thank everyone for listening in. Charlie, I appreciate you being here on the show today. And I always want to just end with this little tidbit and reminder. If it's about accounting, it is universal. So take care, have a great day, and be safe out there. Bye-bye.